He always believed the galaxy feared only two things: the Zurith Emperor and the monster he owned. The creature locked in the steel cage below the arena floor was the one every alien child heard stories about. The one soldiers whispered about when their commander wasn't listening. They called it the Howler because when it roared, whole cities trembled. It was taller than 3 grown warriors, its skin like jagged stone, its teeth long enough to tear armored carriers apart. It was created for only one purpose: to rip anything alive into pieces. And tonight, the arena was full, every species sitting in the stands waiting for blood. The lights dimmed, the drums boomed. The Emperor stood above, watching with cold eyes. He loved these shows. They reminded the galaxy that the Zurith were the strongest. They reminded prisoners what fear tasted like. The announcer shouted that a new victim was brought from a captured human ship. The crowd cheered because humans were always the weakest. Soft flesh, slow reflexes, no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. Easy prey. Everyone expected the show to be quick, boring, and simple. But then the metal gate opened and silence fell like a heavy stone. A single human girl walked forward. She wasn't armored like a warrior. She wasn't trembling like a victim. She wasn't crying or begging. She walked with slow, steady steps, like someone walking through a quiet garden. Her feet touched the dust. Her hair fell over her shoulders. Her eyes were strangely calm. And the arena, filled with thousands of aliens, suddenly had no sound except the soft tapping of her footsteps. Some aliens leaned forward. Some laughed nervously. Some whispered that this must be a mistake. But no mistake was announced. She was the sacrifice, a quiet human girl. No weapon, no shield, no fear. The Zurith commander stepped forward with confidence dripping from his voice. Begin. The lights focused on the steel cage in the center of the arena. It shook once, then twice. A low growl echoed through the ground, vibrating under every seat. The Howler had sensed her. The crowd held its breath as the commander lifted his hand high above his head, letting suspense drown everyone's mind. His voice cut through the air like a blade. Monster! Rip her apart. The cage door blasted open. Metal flew like shrapnel. Dust exploded upward. And from inside the darkness, the Howler charged. The creature leapt with a speed that didn't match its massive size, its claws leaving trails of sparks on the arena floor. Its roar was so loud that the sand lifted in a wave around it. The girl stood still, not frozen in fear, simply standing like she wasn't bothered at all. The first scream came from the audience, not from her. She didn't scream. She didn't move. She simply watched the monster run toward her with eyes as calm as someone watching rain fall. Aliens shouted for her to run. Some shouted for the beast to tear faster. Some recorded the moment, eager to spread the video of a human being shredded. The commander smiled, his arms folded. He enjoyed this part, watching the weak die. The Howler grew closer. 8 seconds. Its claws scratched the ground. Its roar cracked the air. 10 seconds. The girl still didn't move. 12 seconds. The creature lunged, its entire body lifting from the ground. 15 seconds. Silence. Not a slow silence. Not a fading silence. A sudden, impossible silence that froze every heartbeat in the arena. The crowd blinked. The commander blinked. Even the beast froze in place. The Howler wasn't tearing her apart. It wasn't clawing her chest or biting her throat. It wasn't even standing tall anymore. It was sitting beside her like a harmless animal, its huge body lowering into the dust. The girl slowly reached out her hand. The monster pushed its giant head under her palm like a pet asking to be loved. Gasps exploded across the arena. Thousands of aliens jumped to their feet. Some screamed that the creature malfunctioned. Some shouted that the girl used illegal technology. Others backed away because the Howler had never, in its entire life, bowed to anyone. The commander stepped back without meaning to, his legs trembling in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. The girl didn't answer. She didn't say anything at all. She simply stroked the creature's head, her fingers gentle, her expression soft. She looked like she had known this beast her entire life. The howler's growl faded into a low rumbling sound. Not aggression, but comfort. It leaned against her like a child finding safety. No alien understood what they were seeing. Some believed she hypnotized it. Some believed she was a witch. Some believed she would command it to attack them next. But the girl remained silent, standing in the center of the arena with the most dangerous creature in the galaxy resting its head against her side like a loyal pup. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, gripping the railing, his eyes wide with fear disguised as curiosity. "Who is this human?" he demanded. But the girl didn't even look his way. Her attention stayed on the creature, brushing dust from its fur like she was comforting a wounded friend. The commander shouted at the beast to attack again, but the howler turned its head and growled at him. A deep, threatening growl that sent a wave of terror through the guards. It wasn't obeying him anymore. The connection between them was broken. The beast had chosen. The aliens tried to understand how this happened. Why would a monster bred for destruction obey a human? Why did it show affection to her? Why did she look so calm? The truth whispered inside the arena like a ghost. Something ancient, something forgotten. The girl finally raised her head and looked at the crowd. Her eyes were soft, but deep inside them was something powerful, something older than the Zurith Empire. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was a kind of quiet truth, a truth the galaxy had forgotten. She was not just any human. She carried something old inside her blood, something the universe thought had vanished with Earth's lost tribes. The beast felt it. The moment she stepped into the arena, it recognized her, not as prey, not as enemy, but as the only thing it had ever respected. A protector. The crowd waited for her to speak. She didn't. Her silence was louder than any roar. The commander tried one last time to regain control, screaming for the guards to approach. But the howler rose with a violent shake, placing itself between the guards and the girl, its teeth bared with deadly promise. Lights flickered, dust lifted. The entire arena felt the shift in power. The humans were supposed to be weak, but tonight the universe saw something new. A human standing unharmed beside a monster that could kill entire armies. And for the first time in decades, aliens felt fear of humanity again. The girl placed her hand over the howler's chest and whispered something so gentle only the creature heard it. The beast lowered its head instantly, obeying her with perfect trust. The commander felt ice run through his bones. That obedience was something he had chased for years, but he had failed. And she had earned it in seconds. Who was she? Why did the creature bow to her? Why did she look like she had known this was going to happen? Every alien in the arena stared at her with a mix of fear and awe. She began to walk forward, and the creature walked beside her with heavy, protective steps, matching her pace like a guardian. The Emperor shouted for her to stop, his voice cracking with rage, but she didn't stop. She didn't run. She simply walked, calm, silent, free. The howler's shadow stretched over the arena floor as the two of them moved toward the exit. The guards moved out of the way without being ordered. Nobody wanted to be the one who faced a creature that now obeyed a human. As she walked, every step echoed with an unspoken truth. Humans were not what the galaxy believed. Not weak, not soft, not prey. Something inside them was older, deeper, stronger. Something the universe had forgotten. But the girl hadn't forgotten. She walked like someone carrying an ancient rite. And behind her, the monster walked like a king following his queen. The crowd watched in stunned silence until she disappeared into the shadows of the arena tunnel. No one dared breathe. No one dared speak. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, old sensors flickered awake, detecting a strange pulse from the arena. A pulse they had not felt in thousands of years. A human bond. A forgotten power. And the galaxy would soon learn that the girl the Zurith tried to kill was the beginning of something far greater. Because she was not just any human. She was the first sign that humanity's ancient strength was returning. And the howler knew. The moment it touched her hand, it felt the return of the old world. The return of the human bloodline the universe once feared. And in that silent arena, every alien finally understood. The galaxy was about to change forever. The tunnel swallowed them in darkness, but it was not the kind of darkness that frightened her. It felt almost warm, almost familiar, like a long corridor she had walked 1,000 times in dreams she never understood. The Howler walked beside her with slow, heavy steps, its body lowering protectively as if it expected danger from every angle. And yet the girl didn't flinch or rush. She simply let her hand rest against its rough skin because she could feel its heartbeat, strong and wild, but full of trust, a trust it had given no one else. Behind them the arena remained frozen, thousands of aliens unable to even breathe, because no creature, no beast, no weapon, no soldier, had ever refused a Zurith command, and the fact that the monster bowed to a human girl felt like the universe had broken one of its own rules. In the tunnel, the metal walls hummed with alarm signals, red lights flickering like panicked eyes, but all those warnings meant nothing to her because something deep inside her chest kept whispering that she was safe as long as the creature walked with her. But safety was not the same as freedom, and she could already hear the echo of armored footsteps behind them, the guards gathering courage now that the shock was fading and their duty was calling them forward. She stopped walking, gently touching the creature's jaw, and it stopped too, lowering itself like a mountain kneeling. She whispered a soft word, one that wasn't from any alien language, one that wasn't even from the modern human tongue. It was older, shaped from memory and instinct, and the creature responded to it instantly, leaning in as if sheltering her. It was then that she felt something stir in her blood, a warm pressure rising from deep inside her. Like a door she never knew existed had opened for the first time. The Howler felt it too, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark, its breath calming, its muscles relaxing. She did not know why she could command a creature that had killed hundreds. She did not know why the beast looked at her like she was someone sacred. But she knew she was no ordinary human. She had always known she was different. Her senses sharper, her instincts louder, her dreams filled with images of strange creatures defending her, loving her, bowing to her. But no one believed her, not even her own people. Yet now, inside the dark metal tunnel of an enemy empire, everything made sense. This was not an accident. This was not luck. This was something written in her blood long before she was born. She turned to walk again, but the ground shook with force, dust falling from the ceiling, and she heard the echo of dozens of boots racing toward them. The guards came with weapons ready, their armor glowing blue in the dim lights, their voices mixing fear and duty as they shouted for her to stop. She didn't stop. She didn't run. She simply stood with the creature beside her, feeling its breath warm against her hand. The first guard fired a blast toward her chest, and for a moment she didn't even react. She didn't have time. But the Howler moved faster than any creature its size should move, its body twisting in front of the blast, taking the hit, roaring with a sound that cracked the walls. The girl gasped, not because she feared harm, but because she felt the beast's pain like a spark tearing through her own nerves. That connection, that strange bond, pulsed stronger. The Howler's roar was not one of anger but of warning, a threat that echoed through the tunnel like thunder. The guards hesitated immediately, stepping back as their commander shouted orders they no longer believed in. The girl pressed her palm to the creature's wound, whispering again, and something impossible happened. The flesh began to tighten, the bleeding slowed, the pain faded. It was not magic, not healing, but something older, something in their shared connection stabilizing the creature's body. The guards watched with trembling hands, fear spreading like cold rain. Humans were not supposed to have powers. Humans were not supposed to command beasts that empires feared. Humans were not supposed to stand untouched while a monster shielded them like a guardian spirit. The commander forced his soldiers forward, but the creature's massive tail slammed into the tunnel floor, creating a shockwave that sent the front line stumbling back. The girl's voice remained soft, her touch gentle, but her presence felt heavier than any weapon. She didn't understand how she was doing any of this, but she felt the truth inside her like a heartbeat that was not hers. The creature wasn't obeying her. It was recognizing her. Something ancient inside its instincts had awakened, and something ancient inside her blood answered it. The guards regrouped, their fear now mixed with anger, and they aimed their weapons again. The Howler growled, but the girl lifted her hand, and the beast instantly fell silent, waiting for her signal like an old soldier waiting for its commander. She stepped forward, her small figure illuminated by the red lights, and everyone stepped back even though she carried no weapon. Her voice was calm, steady, almost sad as she spoke for the first time since entering the arena. "I don't want to hurt anyone." The simplicity of her words hit the soldiers harder than a roar. A human girl, standing between death and an empire, choosing not anger but peace. But peace was not what the Zurith wanted. One guard screamed and charged, blade raised. The howler reacted instantly, but she placed her hand on its chest, stopping it, and in that heartbeat she stepped aside instead of striking back. The guard's own momentum threw him forward, crashing into the wall. She hadn't attacked him. She had simply moved out of the way. The soldiers realized she was not violent. The creature was not violent, but they were forcing violence into this moment. One by one, more guards attempted to approach, but none dared strike again. The howler's eyes kept them frozen in fear. And then, from behind the guards, a new sound entered the tunnel. A slow, heavy thumping, like machinery waking from a long sleep. The girl felt a strange energy sweep through her bones, and the howler trembled beside her. Something else was waking under the arena floor. Something older, something powerful. The guards looked around, confused and afraid. She did not know what it was, but she knew it was reacting to her presence. The tunnel lights flickered. The air grew thicker. The creature leaned closer to her, sensing danger. For a moment everything stood still. Then the commander shouted, "Capture her alive!" And all chaos returned at once. But this time she was not afraid. She looked into the howler's glowing eyes, and the creature understood, lowering itself for her to climb. She didn't need to speak. She didn't need to command. The bond spoke for her. As she climbed onto the creature's back, the alarms screamed overhead, and the soldiers panicked because they realized they were not facing a girl and a beast. They were facing something the galaxy had forgotten humans could be. The howler roared one final time and charged down the tunnel, smashing through the guards like leaves in a storm, protecting her with its entire body. And as they burst into the open, the sky above them lit up with distant lights, signals, sensors, movements, as if something from far, far away had finally felt her presence. She didn't know it yet. The Zurith didn't know it yet. But the entire galaxy had just felt the awakening of something ancient in her blood. And nothing would ever be the same again. The night air hit her face like a cold wave as the howler burst out of the tunnel, its heavy feet shaking the ground with every step, its breath hot with instinct and loyalty as it carried her away from the arena that still echoed with fear and confusion. The city outside was alive with alarms, red lights flashing across towers shaped like claws, drones rising into the sky like angry insects, their metal wings humming with threat. But the girl felt none of the fear the soldiers expected her to feel because something inside her chest was growing stronger with every breath, something ancient and warm and powerful that made the world around her feel slower, clearer, as if she were seeing everything from a higher point. She held onto the howler's fur, feeling its muscles tense beneath her palms. And in that moment she realized the creature wasn't running for its life. It was running for hers. Each leap was guided not by panic but by purpose, the purpose of protecting the one being it recognized above all others. The city streets below blurred as they passed over them, aliens screaming and jumping out of the way, vehicles crashing into walls as the enormous beast bounded across the rooftops with speed no one believed it had. Towers shook, windows shattered, drones swarmed overhead, firing blue lasers that flickered through the air like angry fireflies. She ducked instinctively as one shot crackled past her ear, but the howler twisted its body, shielding her again, taking the hit on its thick hide without slowing down. She pressed her hand to its neck, whispering a soft sound she didn't even know she knew, and the beast rumbled with a sound that felt full of comfort rather than pain. Behind them the soldiers shouted orders, their voices mixing with the drone sirens, but none of it reached her heart. Her thoughts were somewhere deeper, pulled by something she couldn't yet understand. An echo, a pulse, like a distant heartbeat calling her name from far beyond the city. She tried to ignore it, but the sensation grew stronger with every second, making her chest heavier, her senses sharper. The howler felt it too. Its ears twitched, its growls shifting from aggression to confusion, as if it sensed a presence it had not felt since its birth. They finally reached a wide platform at the top of a metal tower where the creature stopped, panting, its huge shoulders rising and falling like waves. She slid off its back, her feet touching the cold metal, and for a moment she simply stood, staring at the sky that seemed to vibrate with unseen energy. Drones circled them, forming a ring of glowing lights, their weapons aimed, their engines buzzing like a hive preparing to sting. The howler roared, baring its teeth, trying to place itself between her and every angle of danger. But she put her hand on its jaw, calming it with a whisper. The drones hesitated, as if uncertain whether to fire. Down below, the guards gathered, raising guns, shouting commands. She should have been terrified. Any normal human would be, but she felt a strange calm, as if she were wrapped in something protective, something warm, something ancient. She raised her eyes to the sky, and in that exact moment a sharp streak of light tore through the clouds, splitting them like fabric. The entire city froze. Everyone, guards, civilians, drones, commanders, looked up as a thunder-like vibration rolled across the horizon. Another streak, then another, and then the sky opened fully, revealing the silhouettes of massive ships descending from orbit, their engines silent, their designs dark and sleek, their presence heavier than any alien ship the galaxy had ever known. The Zurith soldiers watched with horror as the ships lowered, forming a line across the sky like a row of silent giants. Their shape was unmistakable, their insignia undeniable. The girl felt her breath catch as the lead ship positioned itself above her, casting a shadow so large it covered the entire platform. For a brief moment, the city seemed to kneel under that shadow. A voice echoed from the ship, deep and steady. A voice that held no rage but carried a weight that pressed against the hearts of every being listening. "Return our citizen, or we take her back ourselves." The city shook with the force of that message. It was not loud, yet it carried across every rooftop, every street, every tower. The Emperor himself heard it inside his palace and froze, his claws gripping his throne. Humans, the species the galaxy mocked, the ones they called weak explorers, now hovered above the capital with a fleet built for war. The guards on the ground lowered their weapons without being ordered. Drones drifted back hesitantly, unsure whether they should attack or flee. The howlers snarled at the ships above, confused by their presence, torn between protecting her from the sky and protecting her from the soldiers below. But the girl felt something different. The more she stared at those ships, the stronger that inner warmth became, as if the pulse inside her blood recognized something, someone, aboard those vessels. She took a slow breath, and the howler leaned into her gently, sensing her emotions shifting. The commander finally arrived at the base of the tower, his armor shining, his face twisted with fear and stubborn pride. He pointed his weapon at her and shouted, "She is our prisoner. Humans have no power here." His voice cracked. Everyone could hear it. Before she could respond, before the howler could roar back, the ship above shined a beam of blue-white light across the platform, scanning her gently from head to toe. Stopped halfway, flickered, scanned again. Then the deep voice returned. "We have found her. She lives." The soldiers looked at each other in confusion. The humans weren't just here for any prisoner. They were here for her specifically. But why? Who was she? She asked herself the same question. She didn't know why these ships made her heart ache with familiarity. She didn't know why her blood felt like it was burning in response to their presence. She didn't know why the howler looked at her like it recognized her from another lifetime. The commander yelled again, ordering the drones to fire, but they disobeyed him. They simply hovered, trembling, their programming overridden by fear or instinct. No machine wanted to be the first to attack a human warship fleet. The city lights flickered. The wind picked up. A low hum from the largest human ship vibrated through the air, forming waves of energy that rippled across the rooftops. She took a step forward without realizing it. Her body moved as if it belonged to those ships, as if a part of her soul had been asleep inside them for years. The howler rumbled, placing its head beside her hip, urging her not to leave. But she whispered to it again, her voice soft like a memory, and the beast calmed. The commander screamed for backup, for reinforcements, for anything that could break the human presence above them. But nothing came. No soldier dared act. No drone dared fire. The girl finally lifted her head and looked straight into the sky, into the blue lights, into the shadows of the human fleet. And in that moment she understood something that made her heart stop for a breath. The ships weren't just here to save her. They had been searching for her for a long, long time. The pulse in her blood, the warmth, the strange instincts, the ancient whisper. None of it was random. None of it was new. She was connected to something larger than she ever imagined. And the galaxy was about to learn why. The wind shifted. The ship lights brightened. The ground trembled. And the girl finally realized the truth she had been sensing all along. This was not a rescue. This was an awakening. The silence that fell over the city felt heavier than the darkest night, as if the entire world had stopped breathing when the human fleet hovered above the capital like silent giants watching their child from the sky. The girl stood on the platform with the howler beside her, the creature's massive frame trembling not from fear but from the same strange pull that shivered through her blood. A pull that was almost painful now, like someone far away was calling her name with a voice she had never heard but somehow remembered. The human ships hung motionless in the clouds, their dark surfaces reflecting the city's lights, their engines so silent that even the wind seemed to avoid disturbing them. The commander below tried to shout something again, but his voice trembled too much. Even he felt that the world had shifted in a direction he couldn't control anymore. The girl stared up at the lead ship, sensing that something inside it was reaching for her. Something old, familiar, and powerful, as if a hidden piece of her soul had been living there long before she was even born. The howler pressed its giant head against her shoulder, rumbling low, torn between wanting to shield her and wanting to follow the pull in her blood. She placed her hand on its jaw, feeling its breath warm against her skin, and whispered the same ancient sound she had used before, the sound that didn't belong to any language but felt natural on her tongue. The creature calmed instantly, lowering itself into a protective crouch, its eyes glowing gently with loyalty and confusion. Then the human ship sent down a second beam, this one softer, lighter, almost warm, washing over her and the howler like a gentle wind. The city watched in shock as the light scanned the creature, recognizing it not as a monster but as something that belonged to humanity long before the Zurith ever stole its kind. The Emperor screamed orders through the communication towers, demanding the fleet withdraw, but the humans didn't even acknowledge him. Their focus was fixed entirely on the girl. One of the ships shifted position, lowering itself slowly. The metal shook under its invisible pressure, dust swirling into the air, buildings creaking like ancient bones. The girl felt her pulse sync with the humming in the sky, her heart beating in the same rhythm as the ship's lights. She didn't understand it, but she knew the ship was not merely responding to her presence. It was recognizing her. The commander below shouted again, ordering the soldiers to fire at the girl, insisting they regain control, but none of the troops moved. Their feet remained frozen, their eyes wide with terror, because even the dumbest soldier knew that attacking a human girl protected by both a howler and a fleet of unknown human warships was suicide. The ship above emitted a deeper hum, and the drones circling the city flickered before shutting down entirely, dropping from the sky like dead flies. The girl watched hundreds of drones crash across rooftops, falling silent one by one. She didn't feel joy or victory. She felt something closer to grief, like she was standing in the middle of a storm she didn't ask for. The commander finally forced one soldier to step forward by threatening him, and the trembling alien raised his weapon toward her. For a moment she saw fear, conflict, desperation in his eyes. He didn't want to hurt her. He didn't want to die either. She raised her hand slightly, not in defense but in a soft plea for him to stop, and for a second he hesitated. But before he could lower the weapon, before she could say a word, the human ship reacted. A flash of blue light streaked from the vessel, but it did not strike the soldier. It struck the ground between them, carving a deep glowing line across the metal platform, separating her from the guards. The message was clear. No one crosses that line. The soldier fell backward in shock. The howler roared, its rage echoing through the city, its voice carrying a warning that made even the wind freeze. And then the voice from the ship returned, softer than before, but heavier, like a truth being revealed. Do not fear. You are safe. We have come for you. The girl felt her knees weaken, not from fear, from the overwhelming sense that the voice was speaking directly to something inside her soul. The howler nudged her gently, supporting her weight. Below, the Zurith Emperor shouted that humans had no right to claim her, that she was a prisoner, that humanity was weak. The ship's lights flared in response, casting a blue glow across the entire capital, and the voice replied with a quiet finality. You misunderstand. We are not claiming her. She belongs with us because she was ours long before you ever knew she existed. Those words struck her like lightning. She had spent her whole life feeling different, feeling like she didn't fit in with ordinary humans, feeling like something inside her was waiting to wake up. And now the truth was standing above her in the form of a warship that glowed like a forgotten memory. The Emperor roared for his elite troops, sending a squad of armored soldiers up the tower to capture her. She felt panic rise, not for herself but for them, because she knew the howler would not allow them near her. The creature rose, every muscle tensing, preparing to tear apart anyone who got close. But then something else happened, something she didn't expect. The human ship lowered a small platform made of blue light, floating gently toward her like a bridge. The soldiers stopped instantly, unsure what the shimmering platform even was. The girl felt the pull again, strong and undeniable. Her body stepped toward it even before her mind could decide. The howler growled in distress, backing up, torn between following her and staying grounded. She pressed her palm against its cheek, feeling its pain, its loyalty, its fear of losing her. Her heart squeezed painfully. She didn't want to leave it behind. It didn't want to let her go. But the platform waited. The ship waited. The bond in her blood waited. She whispered to the creature again, her voice trembling with emotion. It lowered its head, pressing its forehead against hers, and she felt hot tears fill her eyes, not from fear or sadness, but from the deep ache of knowing something was changing forever. The soldiers dared step forward again, thinking her hesitation meant weakness. But the howler snapped its head toward them with such fury that the tower itself shook. She knew she had to choose. She knew where she belonged. She stepped onto the blue platform, her breath shaking. The howler roared, a sound so raw and powerful it made the clouds tremble. As she rose into the air, lifted toward the ship, the creature ran beneath her, following her shadow, refusing to let her go even as the distance grew. She reached toward it, her hand trembling, tears slipping down her face as the city shrank below. And the creature kept running, roaring for her, reaching for her, its loyalty breaking the hearts of every witness. The human ship opened its doors as the platform ascended. And for the first time she felt what home felt like. But as she rose into the ship, one terrifying thought entered her mind. The howler was not the only ancient thing that had awakened because of her. Something else was coming. Something older. Something watching. And the galaxy would soon learn that saving her was only the beginning. The doors of the human ship closed behind her with a soft metallic sigh, sealing the world outside and muffling the distant roars of the howler until they faded into a heartbreaking echo that made her chest tighten, as if something inside her had been cut in half. The blue platform dissolved beneath her feet, turning into gentle light that faded into the floor, and she stood trembling in the center of a wide corridor filled with soft white glow. The walls smooth and curved like they had been shaped by hands that understood comfort more than war. She had expected the inside of a warship to feel cold and cruel, full of weapons and soldiers and sharp edges, but instead it felt warm, almost alive, as if the ship itself breathed softly around her. Her legs felt weak, and she leaned against the nearest wall, her fingers brushing its surface, realizing it pulsed faintly beneath her touch like a heartbeat echoing her own. She whispered the howler's name softly even though it wasn't there, her voice cracking, because she could still feel the creature's loyalty like a thread pulling at her heart. A bond so strong it didn't break even as metal and sky separated them. But now she sensed something else too. Something inside the ship responding to her presence. Something stirring in the walls. Something ancient and waiting. Footsteps approached from the far end of the corridor, steady and calm, and she stood straighter even though her legs still shook, her breath trembling as she tried to wipe the tears from her face. A group of humans rounded the corner. Soldiers in dark armor, their helmets smooth and silent, their movements precise, but their eyes were soft with emotion she couldn't understand. They didn't aim weapons at her. They didn't see her as a prisoner. They saw her like someone precious, someone long lost, someone they had been searching for across stars and years. One of the soldiers stepped forward, removing his helmet, revealing a face lined with age and worry, his eyes bright with something between relief and disbelief. "We found you," he whispered, his voice breaking, as if he had carried those words inside him for years. She didn't answer because she didn't know what to say. She didn't know who they were. She didn't know why they cared. She didn't know why her entire soul felt like it recognized them even though she had never met them before. The soldier reached out slowly, as if afraid she would vanish if he moved too fast, and she stepped back by instinct, her heart pounding, not out of fear but out of the overwhelming confusion pressing against her ribs. Who are you?" she managed to whisper. The soldier exhaled shakily and kneeled before her, bowing his head in a gesture she had never seen humans use in her life. The others followed, lowering themselves with respect so deep it felt ancient. "We are your own," the soldier said softly. "Your people, your guardians, the ones sworn to protect your bloodline." Her breath caught, her vision blurring as her mind spun in circles. Bloodline? Guardians? For a moment she thought they were mistaken. She was just a girl from a quiet colony, raised by ordinary parents, living an ordinary life, until she was captured. There was nothing special about her, nothing noble, nothing ancient. She shook her head, her voice trembling. "I'm nobody." The soldier lifted his eyes, his voice steady but full of sadness. "You are not nobody. You are the last living descendant of the human beast tamers, the lineage believed lost 1,000 years ago, the bloodline that could command creatures no empire could control." She froze as the words crashed through her like waves, each one heavy, each one sharp. Beast tamers. The stories she heard as a child. Ancient tales of humans who could bond with creatures through instinct, heart, and spirit. She thought they were just myths, bedtime legends, forgotten history. But the howler, the way it obeyed her, the way it bowed to her, she pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat pound violently. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "That's impossible." "It is not," the soldier replied gently. "You awakened the bond inside you when you touched the howler. That creature was created by your ancestors, spirit-bound protectors designed to defend your bloodline." Her knees weakened again, and she stumbled, but the soldier caught her gently, guiding her to sit on a cushioned bench built into the wall. She felt dizzy, her heart heavy, her mind struggling to accept a truth that felt too big, too powerful, too unreal. "My ancestors created the howlers?" she said softly. "No," the soldier corrected with a calm softness. "Your ancestors created something deeper. Every howler ever born carries the instinct to protect your bloodline. The moment they see one of you, they recognize you." Her breath stopped completely for a moment. The howler didn't bow to her by chance. It bowed because it knew her, because it had been waiting for her. "But the Zurith used them for war," she whispered. "They broke them. They tortured them. They made them monsters." The soldier nodded slowly, grief flickering in his eyes. "Yes, they stole the first howler centuries ago. They twisted them. They bred them for battle. They never knew the truth, that the more they forced the creatures to fight, the more the creatures' instincts yearned for their true purpose." She felt her eyes burn with tears again as the image of the howler pressing its head into her palm flashed through her mind. It hadn't been a monster. It had been a creature longing for something it didn't understand, someone it didn't remember, until it saw her. The soldier placed a hand over his heart. "You are the key to awakening all of them." Her entire body shivered. All of them. The soldier nodded. There are hundreds, maybe thousands, scattered across the galaxy. Lost, caged, tortured, used as weapons. But the moment you awakened the instinct inside the first one, the others felt it. She remembered the tremor beneath the arena floor, the distant growl in the tunnels, the strange thumping that felt like something waking underground. "They're waking up," she whispered. "Because of me. Because of who you are," the soldier corrected. The last of a sacred line. She covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed. "I didn't ask for this. No one ever does," the soldier said softly. "But destiny does not ask permission." She let her hands fall into her lap, her voice trembling. "The howler. It's still down there. They'll kill it." The soldier shook his head slowly. "No, they cannot kill what is already awakened." "But it's alone," she whispered painfully. "No," the soldier said, and his voice grew heavy with meaning. "It is not alone anymore. When you awakened, every sleeping howler across this planet felt it. They are rising." She felt a cold chill rush through her. She remembered the roar in the tunnels, the one that did not belong to her howler. "They're coming," she breathed. "Yes," the soldier said quietly. "And they are not coming for the Zurith." Her heart pounded as she realized the truth. An ancient army was waking beneath the city, not because of war, not because of rage, but because they sensed her. The soldier lifted his hand, speaking into a small device. "Prepare for approach. We bring her to the bridge." The floor beneath her glowed, shifting gently, carrying her and the soldiers deeper into the ship. As the hallway opened into a wide chamber filled with glass panels, hollow displays, and star charts, she saw something that made her breath stop. A massive screen showing the planet below, and in the shadows beneath the city, glowing eyes rising from underground. Dozens first, then hundreds, then more. The ship's captain turned toward her, his face solemn. "They are coming to protect you. The Zurith cannot stop them." She stared at the screen, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to start this." "You didn't start it," the captain said softly. "You awakened it." The glowing eyes on the screen moved closer, forming shapes of towering beasts rising from dust and metal. And she knew this was only the beginning. She wasn't running from destiny anymore. Destiny was running toward her. The chamber lights dimmed as the screen widened, showing the full horror and beauty of what was happening beneath the planet's surface, and she stared with trembling breath as the shadows under the Zurith capital shifted like a sleeping world turning in its bed after thousands of years. At first it looked like dust storms swirling underground, clouds of broken stone being pushed upward by pressure. But then the shaking grew stronger, the ground rippling like water, and beneath the streets the first howlers emerged, covered in dirt, their massive bodies climbing from cracked tunnels as if rising from ancient graves. Their glowing eyes pierced through the smoke, one pair turning into 10, then into 20, then into thousands, each one lifting its head toward the sky with a low rumble that vibrated through the human ship's floor. She felt the sound through her bones, not as fear but as recognition, as if every creature waking beneath the city was whispering her name through the earth. The soldiers around her watched with silent awe, some whispering prayers, some gripping their weapons even though they knew none of those creatures would ever harm her. The captain stepped closer to the main screen, his voice calm but lined with a seriousness that made her stomach twist. "The Zurith Empire has no idea what they triggered. They thought the Howlers were simple war beasts. They never understood their true origin." She swallowed hard, her voice breaking as she tried to speak. What are they doing?" "They are waking," the captain said softly. "And they are searching for you." The screen zoomed in as hundreds of howlers tore through the underground metal cages, shattering walls that once imprisoned them, pushing aside steel as if it were made of wet sand. They rose to the surface in waves, some leaping through the streets, others climbing buildings, others roaring into the sky as their instincts sharpened for the first time in centuries. Civilians ran in terror, soldiers scrambled to form lines, drones fired shots that bounced off the creature's thick hide, but the howlers didn't pay attention to any of them. They kept lifting their heads, nostrils flaring, searching, sensing, following that ancient bond that had been dormant for too long. She felt tears burn in her eyes, not from fear, but from the overwhelming ache of knowing that she had woken something she didn't fully understand. The howler she bonded with was just the first. The others felt the bond echo through their blood. She touched the glass screen with trembling fingers, whispering the name of her own howler, hoping it could somehow hear her through the chaos and distance. The captain turned to her, his voice gentle yet heavy with meaning. "They are drawn to you. Your blood calls them. You are the last of your line. The last voice they were born to obey." She shook her head slowly, her heart pounding painfully as she watched a howler leap over a burning vehicle to shield fleeing civilians instead of attacking them. "But I didn't ask for this. I just tried to survive." "That is how all great destinies begin," the captain replied quietly. She backed away from the screen, her breath shaking as she tried to absorb the reality unfolding before her. The whole planet was shaking now, the ground splitting as more howlers climbed out, their roars mixing into a haunting chorus that echoed up into the night sky. The commander on the ground screamed new orders to his soldiers, trying to form battle lines, trying to control a situation that had already slipped from his grasp. The emperor demanded artillery, airstrikes, anything that could stop the beasts, but every weapon that fired only triggered more fury from the sleeping giants waking beneath the city. One blast struck a howler's shoulder, and the creature roared so loudly the windows of an entire district shattered. But instead of attacking civilians or random soldiers, the howlers moved with purpose. Avoiding innocents, crushing military vehicles, knocking drones from the sky, breaking chains, ripping apart the structures that once held them captive. They weren't destroying the city out of rage. They were clearing a path toward her. The captain stepped beside her, watching her face carefully. "They know where you are." Her heart skipped a beat. "But this ship, we're in the sky. They can't reach me." "They will try," the captain said, "and the Zurith will try to intercept them." The ground rumbled louder. On the screen, a massive howler, larger than any other, lifted its head and let out a roar that shook the clouds. She felt that roar in her ribs. It felt like the voice of the very first howler ever created, the one her ancestors bonded with, the one whose bloodline spread across the galaxy. The ship's sensors beeped urgently. "Captain," a soldier said, voice tense, "the howlers are moving in formation." The captain's eyebrows furrowed. "Formation? They're wild creatures." "Not anymore," the soldier whispered. The screen zoomed out, showing the howlers lining up in curved lines, forming a spiral shape that pointed directly upward. Directly at the ship. Directly at her. She touched her chest, feeling her heartbeat pounding with the same rhythm as the howlers' roars. "I didn't mean to call them," she whispered painfully. "It isn't a call," the captain said. "It's recognition. You awakened a bond they've carried for centuries." Her breath trembled. "But what happens now?" The captain hesitated. His silence lasted too long. "What aren't you telling me?" she asked softly. His voice was quiet when he finally answered. "The howlers are protectors. They do not attack without purpose. If they all rise at once, it is because they sense danger." "Danger?" she repeated, her voice cracking. "Danger to who?" He met her eyes. "To you." Her blood turned to ice. The screen flickered as something massive appeared behind the howlers. Giant shadows rising from deeper underground, shapes too big and too old to be ordinary creatures. These were not howlers. These were something else. Something the Zurith had buried, not for war, but out of fear. Old things. Forbidden things. Things that had been sleeping longer than the howlers themselves. The earth split as the new shapes climbed slowly from the darkness. Their roars deeper, older, filled with a hunger the howlers did not have. These were predators of the ancient world. The captain's voice dropped to a whisper. The bond awakened them too. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she realized the truth. The howlers were not the only ancient beings tied to her bloodline. Something else had woken up. Something not created to protect. Something created to hunt. The captain turned to his soldiers. "Prepare shields. Protect the girl at all costs. Lights blared across the ship as soldiers rushed to stations. The screen zoomed in on the monstrous shapes rising to the surface. Her voice came out as a whisper full of dread. What are those? The captain swallowed hard. Not protectors, he whispered. Destroyers. The enemies your ancestors locked away long before humans left Earth. Her pulse raced. Why are they waking? Because they sensed you, he said. And unlike the Howlers, they do not want to serve you. Her breath caught. The truth hit her like a falling star. The Howlers were coming to protect her. But the other creatures, the ancient destroyers, were coming to claim her. And the battle for her blood had only just begun. The ship trembled as alarms echoed through the command deck, red lights flashing across polished metal floors like frantic pulses. But she barely noticed them because her eyes were locked on the screen showing the nightmare unfolding below. A nightmare she somehow felt breathing inside her chest. The ancient destroyers, towering shadows of forgotten ages, pulled themselves from the cracked earth like creatures waking after a 1,000-year hunger. Their bodies huge and jagged, their movements slow but powerful, their eyes glowing with a cold intelligence that made her blood run cold. They were different from the Howlers. Their roars were lower, deeper, filled with rage and hunger, not loyalty. They moved like predators that had once hunted her kind, and never forgot the taste. Her legs shook as she stared, unable to look away, unable to breathe, unable to understand how the universe could be so cruel as to wake creatures meant to destroy her in the same moment that her protectors finally rose. The captain watched her with a worried expression, as if trying to calculate how much truth she could handle before breaking. She felt his gaze but couldn't pull her eyes from the screen. "Why do they want me?" she whispered, her voice cracking, her throat dry like she'd swallowed dust. It wasn't fear for herself that hurt the most. It was the sickening guilt that everything rising from the ground was rising because of her. She didn't want to be a reason for death. She didn't want cities to shake because her blood pulsed ancient commands she didn't understand. The captain stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your ancestors locked those creatures away when humanity first began expanding into the stars. They were the only enemies the beast tamers could never control. She closed her eyes as his words sank deep into her bones like ice. Control, she whispered painfully. I can't even control myself. Her breath trembled. How am I supposed to stop them? The captain didn't answer immediately. He stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, as the destroyers lifted their heads toward the sky, sensing her, sensing the bond line that awakened them like an old wound aching. You are not meant to fight them alone, he finally said, quietly but firmly. You were never meant to face destiny without your protectors. The screen zoomed out to show the Howlers, hundreds of them forming walls of muscle and stone-skinned bodies between the destroyers and the city. They let out thunderous roars that rolled like storms across the capital. The destroyers roared back, answering the challenge. She pressed her hand against the screen, tears spilling freely now. They're trying to protect me, she whispered. But they'll die. They'll all die. As if hearing her grief, the Howler she bonded with, her Howler, jumped onto a ruined tower, roaring so fiercely the ship's sensors glitched. It lifted its head in her direction, its glowing eyes locking onto the ship high above. She felt its cry vibrate through her ribs, felt its fear, its anger, its devotion, its promise. It would not let the destroyers reach her, even if it had to die. She gasped, covering her mouth, her heart aching so badly it felt like breaking. She looked at the captain with desperation. We have to help them. We can't just watch. The captain met her eyes, and for a moment she saw something break inside him. His fear, his hesitation, his training, until only duty remained. But not duty to the fleet, duty to her. Prepare the shields and battle teams, he ordered sharply. We fight beside them. Soldiers rushed across the deck. The lights dimmed to blood red. The engines roared. Yet none of those sounds could drown out the tremor she felt in her soul as the battle below began. The destroyers moved like living mountains, slamming their limbs into the ground, sending shockwaves that toppled buildings. The Howlers charged, hundreds of them springing into motion like a single living storm, some leaping onto the destroyers' backs, clawing at their stone-like skin, others surrounding their legs to pin them. But the destroyers were stronger, much stronger. One sweep of a massive limb sent 10 howlers flying like broken dolls. Another creature opened its jaw and let out a blast of fire-hot energy that scorched the streets. She felt every howler's pain like a punch to her own chest. She cried out, collapsing to her knees as the bond between her and the creatures intensified, pulling her into their fear, their fury, their struggle. The captain knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "You feel them because they feel you," he said urgently. "Your bond is stronger than you know. You can guide them, maybe even control the battlefield." She shook her head wildly, tears streaming. "I don't know how." "You don't need to know," he said. "Just feel." She closed her eyes, pressing her trembling hands over her heart. She let herself feel the roar of her howler, the pounding of its heart, the electricity of its instincts. She let herself feel its fear of losing her, its anger at the destroyers, its determination, and then she felt something else, its faith that she could help it. She took a shaky breath and whispered the ancient sound, the sound that had come to her so naturally in the arena and in the tunnels. The ship lights flickered. The howlers froze in the middle of battle. Her howler lifted its head sharply. The destroyers paused, sensing the shift. Her voice trembled as she whispered again, louder, the ancient syllable emerging from a memory she did not own. And the howlers moved, not wildly, not blindly, but in formation, shifting sideways, circling, regrouping like trained warriors as her instinct guided them. The soldiers on board stared in stunned silence as the creatures below moved with a coordination no alien species had ever witnessed. The captain whispered, "She's leading them." Her body shook with the strain of it, her voice breaking as she whispered again, guiding the howlers to surround the biggest destroyer from all sides. The massive battle beast roared in frustration, swinging violently, but the howlers dodged faster, biting into the joints of its stone-hard limbs. A soldier gasped. "She's forcing the destroyer to its knees." She wasn't forcing it. She was begging the howlers to survive. Her voice cracked desperately. The destroyer slammed its body down in rage, scattering howlers, sending dust and fire across the screen. She screamed in pain, falling forward, the bond hitting her like a shockwave. The captain caught her before she hit the floor. "Enough," he whispered urgently. "You'll kill yourself." But she shook her head, sobbing. "I can't stop. They need me." The destroyer rose again, its eyes burning red, roaring at the sky, roaring at her. Her howler, bleeding and limping, dragged itself between the creature and the direction of the ship, placing itself like a shield even though it could barely stand. She felt its pain like knives in her chest. She leaned forward, grabbing the screen frame for support, and whispered again, her voice barely audible. The howler responded instantly, letting out a roar that cut through the battlefield like a blade. It summoned the other howlers. They charged together, hundreds of them, slamming into the destroyer as one living force. The ground split beneath the weight. The destroyer fell. Her howler leapt, landing the final strike, roaring into the creature's face as it collapsed. The deck pulsed with gasps and the captain whispered with awe, "You saved them." But tears streamed down her face because she could still feel many howlers dying in other parts of the city. The destroyers were still rising. The battle wasn't over. Not even close. The ship shook violently as something massive slammed into its outer shields. Soldiers screamed warnings. The captain grabbed her arm and pulled her close. And when the screen flickered back on, she saw the nightmare waiting for her. One of the ancient destroyers had looked up. It had seen her, and now, it was climbing the tallest tower in the city, pulling itself upward with terrifying speed, straight toward her. Straight toward the only bloodline it had hunted for centuries. Her trembling whisper filled the bridge. "It's coming for me." And the captain, soldiers, and ship all realized. The final battle wasn't happening on the ground anymore. It was coming straight to her. The ship trembled again, harder this time, as the ancient destroyer clawed its way up the tallest tower in the capital, each massive limb sinking into steel and concrete like a knife cutting soft cloth, and every pull of its jagged arms shook the entire skyline until windows exploded outward and metal beams bent under its weight. She felt its approach like a cold hand sliding around her throat, not touching her but promising it soon would, and her breath hitched as she gripped the edge of the command console, her knuckles white, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the alarms screaming through the ship. Soldiers scrambled across the deck, shouting coordinates, activating shields, trying to aim weapons at the climbing monster. But the creature moved with unnatural speed for something so massive. Its glowing eyes locked onto the ship with a hunger that chilled even the bravest warrior. The captain pulled her behind him as sparks rained from the ceiling, his voice sharp with urgency but roughened by fear he couldn't hide. It sensed your awakening. It wants the bloodline. It's coming for you, only you. She swallowed hard, her legs failing her as she sank to her knees, the bond with her howler surging through her chest like burning lightning. Her howler roared below, still fighting, still bleeding, still dragging itself forward even though its body shook with exhaustion. She felt its desperation, its agony, its love, and it made her want to scream. "It's trying to get to me," she whispered, her voice breaking like thin glass. "But they're all dying to stop it." The screen flickered and showed her howler collapsing to the ground, struggling weakly to rise again as a smaller destroyer lunged at it from behind. She cried out, pressing her hands over her mouth, tears pouring down her cheeks as her heart twisted painfully inside her chest. "Please, get up," she whispered. "Please, don't leave me." But the howler couldn't hear her through the chaos. Its body trembled, its breath shallow, its wounds deep. Then her breath froze as the massive destroyer climbing the tower let out a roar so powerful the ship's outer shields flickered like dying lights. The captain steadied her shoulders, but she pushed him away, stumbling forward as she stared at the screen. "We can't let it reach the ship," she said with a trembling voice that held more courage than she felt. "If it reaches me, everything will end." "We will not let it," the captain said, but she heard the truth hiding in his voice. They didn't know if they could stop it. The destroyer climbed higher, its claws sinking into the tower's steel spine. Whole floors collapsed beneath it. The city shook. Fires spread. The night sky glowed orange with destruction. And then, with one final pull, the destroyer reached the top of the tower, face lifted toward the ship, its enormous jaws opening with a roar that carried centuries of hate. The ship shuddered as debris smashed against the shields. Electricity rippled through the walls. She lost her balance and fell to the floor, her hands pressing against the cold metal as she gasped for air. Across the deck, the soldiers shouted warnings. "Impact in 3 seconds. Shields failing. Brace for collision." But she felt something the others couldn't. Something rising inside her blood like a sleeping storm awakening with a scream. Her heartbeat synced again with something ancient. Something calling her. Not the howlers. Not the destroyers. Something deeper. Something waiting. Her body trembled as a low hum vibrated the ship from the inside. The captain turned sharply. What was that? But she already knew. It wasn't the ship. It was her. Her blood burned. Her breath caught. Her vision blurred as a surge of instinct exploded inside her mind. Not fear. Not panic. But a command. The same instinct that guided the howlers. But stronger. Older. She pushed herself up, gripping the edge of the console as her voice came out in a whisper she didn't recognize as her own. "Open the front shields." The captain spun toward her, horrified. "Absolutely not. The destroyer will tear the ship in half." Her eyes, glowing faintly with a golden flicker, met his. "Open them." Something in her voice, not force, not desperation, but destiny, made even the captain hesitate. The ship shook again as the destroyer reached forward, ready to leap. She stood tall, even though her legs trembled, even though fear clawed at her throat. "Trust me," she whispered. "Please." The captain stared at her, then gave a sharp order. "Lower the forward shields to 10%. The crew hesitated but obeyed, scrambling to manage controls. The blue protective field in front of the ship weakened, the glow thinning like mist. The destroyer roared, sensing weakness. It lunged. She stepped forward. And in that exact second, the bond inside her exploded. Not just through her chest, but across the entire planet. A shockwave of golden energy burst from her body, invisible to the human eye but seen clearly by the howlers below. She didn't see them, but she felt them, every heartbeat, every breath, every soul connected to hers. The howlers lifted their heads in unison. Her howler, barely alive on the ground, forced itself to stand, its wounds glowing faintly with the same golden light now burning inside her. The destroyer lunged, claws raised, but the howlers roared back, hundreds of them, their voices merging into a single impossible sound that shook the planet's core. That roar echoed inside her blood and burst outward through the weakened shields, hitting the destroyer in midair. The creature collided with the sound wave so violently it was thrown backward off the tower, crashing through several buildings before slamming into the ground below. The ship steadied. The screens flickered. She collapsed to her knees, gasping, her body shaking from the power that had just torn through her. Soldiers stared in shock. The captain knelt beside her. "What did you do?" Her voice trembled. "I didn't do it alone." The screen zoomed in on her howler, still standing despite its wounds, its eyes glowing brighter now, synchronized with hers. She reached toward the screen as tears streamed down her face. "You heard me," she whispered. "You always hear me." The ground below shook violently again. The destroyer wasn't dead. None of them were. The city still burned. The howlers still fought. And far beneath the surface, the ground cracked again as something even larger stirred in the darkness. Something that made even the destroyers hesitate. Something ancient. Something powerful. Something that whispered her name like it had known her for centuries. She felt her blood turn cold as a deep voice echoed through her mind. Not spoken by humans, not spoken by howlers, not spoken by destroyers. A voice older than all of them. "The air has awakened." Her breath stopped. The captain looked at her. "What's happening?" She stared at the screen as new cracks spread across the planet. "Something else is waking up," she whispered. "Something older than the howlers, older than the destroyers." The ship sensors blared warnings. The ground exploded. A massive shape began rising from the deepest layers of the planet, too large to comprehend, too ancient to define. The captain stepped back in horror. "What is that?" She shook her head slowly, fear gripping her heart. "The final being my ancestors created." "Is it a protector?" The captain whispered hopefully. Her voice shook. "It's not a protector." She swallowed hard, tears streaming from fear she could no longer hide. "It's a judge." The planet trembled as the colossal ancient beast rose, its eyes opening slowly, glowing golden like hers. The voice echoed again inside her mind. "The bloodline has returned. Judgment begins." She fell to her knees as the ship shook violently. The galaxy had misunderstood. The howlers were protectors. The destroyers were hunters. But this ancient being, this was something else entirely. And it had awakened for one purpose, to decide if the galaxy deserved her bloodline's return. The screen went black as the ancient judge lifted its head toward the sky, and in her trembling whisper, filled with fear and destiny, she said the final words, "The real war is only beginning."